Welcome to Aligned Christ-Centered Yoga. My name is Linda and I'll be guiding our practice today. My question for you today is how often and how much do you rehearse conversations that are yet to come? And how much do you anticipate the play-by-play of events in your future? Last week I had a meeting I was worried about and I lifted that up as a prayer concern in my small group. And one of my friends said to me, Linda, don't rehearse the conversation before the meeting. When you get there, God will give you all that you need. The next day, my pastor brought to my attention a devotion that had been written the day before for January 16th. It comes from Jesus Calling, and it's written by Sarah Young, as if from God to us. Come to me and rest in my loving presence. You know that this day will bring difficulties, and you are trying to think your way through those trials. As you anticipate what is ahead of you, you forget that I am with you, now and always. Rehearsing your troubles results in experiencing them many times, whereas you are meant to go through them only when they actually occur. I'm going to read that to us again. Rehearsing your troubles results in experiencing them many times, whereas you are meant to go through them only when they actually occur. Do not multiply your suffering in this way. Instead, come to me and relax in my peace. I will strengthen you and prepare you for this day, transforming your fear into confident trust. Throughout the next few days, I stopped that conversation every single time it came into my mind. And the night before I was supposed to have my meeting, I got an email that told me that my meeting was canceled and that the situation had been resolved in a way that was better than I had imagined possible. I didn't even need to go to the meeting. I'm so thankful I didn't rehearse those conversations. Today, as we move through a hip opening flow, as we work our way towards pigeon, I invite you to quiet your mind and to let go of this habit of anticipating all that is to come, resting instead in the present and the presence of the Holy Spirit. Come to a comfortable seated position, maybe with the legs crossed in front of you, maybe the hips elevated up on a blanket or a prop. I invite you to notice the way that your legs have situated. So maybe your knees are very high up, you're very tight through those hips. Maybe your knees are all the way down on the floor. Maybe like me, you are somewhere in between. Wherever you are, go ahead and take the muscles of the thigh and begin to rotate those muscles away from the center and towards the knee. And take your thumb to the inside of that knee and begin to work the calf muscle towards the front of the mat. Add a little massage in there as well. And the same thing on the other side. So just a little massaging of the muscles here, encouraging them to lengthen and let go. And then bring that thumb to the inside of the knee and move that calf muscle towards the front of the mat. Sit up again, noticing the way that the legs now rest on the mat. Closing your eyes, begin to find your breath. As our minds race, coming back to breath can be a way to come back to the present and to let go of the anticipation of all that is to come. Begin to follow the breath, inhaling down the body, exhaling up the body, breathing in and out through your nose. Imagine that your breath has a color. What color are you assigning to your breath? And follow it as it moves down and up the body without beginning and without end. Root, ground, and breathe. another 2 breaths here, noticing the response of the body to the breath. Where else can you relax? Bring the hands out to the side and exhaling, come into a seated cat, rounding the back. And then as the palms move towards the back, open up across the chest, seated cow. So back and forth here, cat and cow. And one more time. How does the back feel today? Let the arms rise up and gently twist, twisting to the right, bringing the arms forward as you inhale, exhale into that twist, and twist to the left. So back and forth here, lengthening through the spine with that inhale, strengthening as you draw the abdominals in and support the back as you twist. One more time. Come off the block or prop. Bring any props that you have towards the front of your mat, keeping the legs crossed in front of you or crossing them in front of you if that's not where you are. Deep breath in, arms rise. Bring the inside of the hands, wrists, forearms together, and as you tuck your chin, gently come forward. Begin to notice sensations maybe in the inner thigh or groin, in the hip, across the back, in the neck. Where do you feel uncomfortable? Can you use your breath to ease those areas? One more breath here. Gently press into your hands and rise up. Switch your legs so that the other leg is now in front. Deep breath in, both arms come up. Again, inside of the hands, wrists, forearms together, tucking your chin, fold over. Notice particularly what's going on in the hip. Notice also the back, the groin, the neck, anywhere else you might be tight. Gently press into your hands and rise up. I invite you to bring your feet together, and today bring them out just a little bit. Lift and lower the knees a couple of times. Find the sitting bones, and as the knees come down, can you feel a little bit of the stretch on the outside of the thighs? So maybe even moving the feet a little bit forward to help you find that. And if, like me, those knees are up, maybe supporting them with a block. Stay here, directing breath into those places that are tight. In your imagination, can you see the breath moving through the body? One more breath here. Supporting yourself with your hands, gently come up. Move the blocks off to the side. Bring those knees up and down a couple of times. This time, feet together, draw them in a little bit closer. Looking now for a stretch in the inner thigh or groin. The knees will probably come down or be up a little bit higher now. Everybody's different, so maybe not for you. Support those legs with the block if you have it. Stay here for another 2 breaths, maybe lengthening through the spine a little bit more so there's not as much of a rounded shoulder. The next inhale, hands come underneath the leg. Gently draw the knees up and meet me in table. In table, bring the wrists directly underneath the shoulders, fingers spread wide, knees underneath the hips, smack through the tops of your feet. Find a little bubble of air in your palm, eyes of the elbows facing in towards each other. From here, find cat, spine rising to sky. And find cow as the chest moves through the arms and up, finding that focal point where the wall meets the floor in front of you. So back and forth here, cat to cow. Can you lead with your breath? Inhale into cow. Exhale into cat. One more time. Meet me back in table, big toes together, draw the knees out wide. Bringing hands, one handprint forward, begin to drop the upper body down towards the mat, leaving the hips over the knees. The head drop down, finding release in the neck. Again, notice where you feel this. Where are you a little uncomfortable? Can you direct the breath into those places to begin to find release? Notice also the curve of the lower back. So what we've done here is we have created the beginning of a downward facing dog. Can you memorize what the back feels like right now? Maybe drawing the shoulders a little closer to the hips. Imagining the fingers reaching forward. And exhaling, press into your hands, bring them underneath your shoulders, bring the knees in one at a time, back in table. And now curling the toes under, bring knees up into the rib cage, let the head drop down, shaking the head out, no, and yes. Engage through the abdominals from hip to hip, belly drawing in and up. Begin to pedal through the feet. Begin to explore what's going on up and down the sides of the body and the outsides of the hips. What else do you notice? On the next inhale, heels rise, and on the next exhale, heels drop towards the mat. Find breath. On the next inhale, right leg rises high. Gaze comes forward, foot comes in between the hands, and the back knee comes down and up towards the mat. So 2 more times here. Let the back knee come down, top of the foot to the mat. Can you find a little more length in the spine today? Maybe the fingers are just barely floating on the mat. Maybe you're even using a block or a prop so that you can rise up a little higher. And as you do that, imagine this back hip drawing forward and up. A little bit of a curve there, like a wave. Find the stretch in the psoas. From here, maybe bringing blocks to either side of that front foot so you can maintain the length in the spine. Begin to draw back, straightening out that front leg and bending it, finding a hamstring stretch. Stretching out behind the thigh. And as you move back and forth, can you draw the hips straight back without winging to the side? If you're ready, extend through that front leg, flex the foot, draw the belly in, lengthen through the spine. Top of the head reaches towards the mat. Find breath. The foot is flexed. Gently bring that front foot back to the mat. Find the stretch in the hip again. This time, draw the arms all the way up and bring the arms out into a cactus, opening up across the chest, finding length all the way up and down the front of the body. Inhale, rise. Exhale, bring the hands down. Bring the front foot to the back. Meet me in plank. From plank, I invite you to drop to your knees, come all the way down to the mat, and bring those forearms wide on the mat. And as you do that, come in and out of Sphinx pose. So the heart comes through the arms. Again, finding that focal point where the wall meets the floor in front of you. Exhale down. Back and forth here a few times. As you're ready, pressing into the forearms, engaging through the abdominals, find your Sphinx pose. Engage the muscles of the lats and the rhomboids in the middle of the back. Feel the shoulders dropping down wide. Exhaling, bring hands to rib cage, coming through table, meet me in downward facing dog. Checking in, notice the effects of that sequence. Right side of the body compared to the left, and take 2 breaths here. On the next inhale, left leg rises high. Gaze comes forward, foot comes all the way through the hands. That back knee taps down and up. How does the hip feel on this side? Where do you notice sensation? One more tap here. And as you're ready, let that knee come down to the mat, top of the foot to the mat. Again, rise up a little bit with the body so that you're lengthening from the top of the head to the tailbone. Maybe feeling this right hip scoop under and forward just a little bit, looking for that stretch in the psoas. Stay here for one more breath. Begin to stretch that front leg, maybe bringing the blocks to the base of the big toe and little toe. Beginning to straighten and bend this front leg, finding the stretch that's right for you. No struggle. No shaking, no pulling, no pain. And one more time. This time, stay back in that hamstring stretch. Again, maybe lengthening a little bit more through the spine, maybe flexing that front foot. You decide what works best for you. Finding breath. Exhaling, bring the foot down. Lean forward just a little bit with the body, lengthen through the spine, bring the body up, find those cactus arms, open up across the chest, and find stretch here. Taking a deep breath in, arms rise, exhaling, hands come to either side of the foot, moving the props out of the side, out to the side. This time the back foot floats to the front, so lift the hips high. Bring that back foot forward, bend the knees, holding onto elbows. Find your first forward fold today. And gently rock the body side to side. And then as the hands come down to the mat, let's begin to walk through the feet here a little bit. Both feet flat on the mat. Can you bend your left knee and find a stretch on the outside of the right leg? Straighten out the legs, hands to shins, come halfway up. Take a nice deep breath in as you lengthen through the spine. Exhale down. Can that right knee bend just a little bit? Finding that stretch on the outside of that left thigh. Go ahead and bend both knees. Raise the hips back up to the sky. Find your forward fold. Hands to shins, rise up halfway. Deep breath in. Exhaling, come down. And then breathing in, rise all the way up. Mountain pose. Palms come together, hands to heart. Stay here and find mountain. Go ahead and take your two peace fingers on either hand. Can you just press lightly at the top of the glutes and the hips and let them come down towards the mat? Hands to the belly, inhaling, feel the navel come towards the spine and up a little bit. Maybe lifting the toes. You can also find that engagement across the hips. Keeping the abdominals strong, deep breath in, arms rise, exhaling, forward fold. Hands to shins, come up halfway. Exhaling, come down to the mat, one leg back and then the other. Meet me in plank. Maybe dropping to your knees, maybe coming through chaturanga. Find your way to the mat. Find a back bend, low cobra, sphinx, or upward facing dog. And meet me in downward dog. Shake your head out, no and yes. And the next inhale, take that right leg up to the sky. We're going to come into lizard, so drawing the gaze forward, float that foot to the outside of the hand. My big toe is actually off the mat, angled slightly forward, heel is on the mat, and drop the back knee. Again, can you lengthen through the spine a little bit so that we're not rounded over, but instead fully engaged from knee to shoulder, creating a nice straight line here. Maybe the top of that back foot to the mat. Stay here for another breath and decide if you want more. Either stay here or begin to rock this front leg out to the side a little bit. You can add a quadricep stretch as that back heel comes up towards the hip. Maybe the right arm reaches for the sky. And maybe it comes back to catch the foot. And you open up across the front of the body again, finding stretch, this time maybe in the quadricep as well. Taking a deep breath in, arm spins all the way back and around. Toe heel the foot back to center. Curl the toes under in the back. Bring the back foot up to meet the front. Forward fold. Hands to shins. Inhale as you rise up halfway. Breathe out as you come down and press through your feet as the arms rise up, meeting me in mountain. Hands together, bring hands to heart. Take 2 breaths here and check in, noticing the way that the feet are connected to the mat, noticing the way that the legs and hips feel, right side compared to left. Begin to notice the sensations in the upper body as well. What do you feel? Breathing in, arms rise, exhaling, forward fold. Hands to shins, rise up halfway. Exhale, come down, meet me in plank. From plank, come down to the mat, however you choose to do that. Find your back bend. And meet me in downward facing dog. Settle into downward facing dog again, just noticing how does the body feel? Focusing on the way the breath is moving through the body. Inhaling, raise the left leg to the sky. Drawing the gaze forward, again, you're going to float this foot to the outside of the left hand. Heel on the mat, toes out to either side, wrists underneath the shoulders, lengthening through the spine. Dropping the back knee, maybe the top of the foot to the mat. As you find a little more length in the spine, really check in and notice where you're tight. Begin to use the breath to create warmth and release in those places. And if you want more, let that knee drop out to the side, rolling to the outside of the foot. If you want the quadricep stretch, that back heel comes up. Sometimes this leads to a hamstring cramp. If you start to cramp, get out of it right away. Stretch it out completely. Left arm rises up. Same thing goes for foot cramps, any kind of cramp that ever happens. Hand comes to the foot, foot comes to the hand. If you're there, press the foot into the hand, opening up across the chest. Taking a deep breath in, bring that arm all the way around. Go ahead and toe heel that front foot back into the center. Raise the back knee up, float the back foot to the front, meet me in forward fold. Staying here, shake the head out, no, and yes. And I invite you to bend and straighten the knees a few times here. And as you're ready, feet flat to the mat, find your forward fold with just enough bend in the legs for a little bit of sensation in the hamstrings, finding a lot of release in the back. And the next breath in, hands come to shins, rise up halfway. Breathing out, come down, and pressing through your feet, come all the way up, mountain pose, palms together. Exhale, hands to heart. Find breath. What do you notice? Take a deep breath in, arms rise, and exhaling, forward fold. Hands to shins, come up halfway. Exhale, come down to the mat, one leg back and then the other. Meet me in plank. And from plank, find your flow back to downward facing dog. As you find downward facing dog, come back to your breath. And the next breath in, raise that right leg up. We're going to use the abdominals here as you float that nose towards your knee. And then just bring the knee to the opposite elbow. A little bit of a twist with the body there. Bring the knee back to center and up. So this time we're going to do that again, but we're going to finish it by bringing that foot to the mat. We're going to actually kickstand out to the side. Bring that right hand to the center and open up. Find stretch across the front of the body, across the chest, maybe along the outside of the hip. Go ahead and bring that arm overhead and reach. Maybe you can find stretch up and down the side of the body. Bring the arm back up to center. Come down to the mat, raise the leg up. And then drawing the gaze forward, bring that foot all the way through the hands, rise into lunge. Settle into your lunge and find it. Again, thinking particularly today of that hip stretch that comes in the front of that left hip. Right hand to the small of the back. Find as much length as you can in the spine. Find your twist and follow it with that left hand across the leg. Stay here for 2 more breaths. Taking a deep breath in, come back to center. Exhale, hands to either side of the foot. Bring the back foot forward, meet me in forward fold. What do you notice in forward fold? Hands to shins, rise up halfway. Exhale and come down, pressing through the feet, come all the way up. Palms together, exhale, hands to heart. Stay here. Find your breath and check in. Can you feel your heartbeat? Deep breath in, arms rise, exhaling, find your forward fold. Rise up halfway as you lengthen through the spine. Exhale back down, meet me in plank. Settle into plank, find the strength in the pose, and then however you choose to, come down to the mat. Find your back bend. Breathe your way back into downward facing dog. Same sequence on this side, left leg rises high. Contract through the abdominals as you float that leg center, and then bring the knee towards the opposite elbow in a gentle twist. Back to center, raise the foot to the sky. This time following through with that movement. So the knee comes to center, the foot kickstands out, left hand to the center of the mat, right arm rises high. Find breath. One more breath here. Maybe bring the palm over the ear and stretch up and down the sides of the body. And bring that hand back up and come back, leg to sky. Gaze forward, bring the foot through the hands, meet me in lunge, find balance. Find your hip stretch. Again, a micro bend in that back knee so that you can just gently bring that hip and scoop it a little bit under. Left hand to the small of the back, lengthen through the spine as you breathe in. Find your twist, right arm follows. Create some traction as that hand presses against the leg. One more breath here. The next inhale, arms rise up. Exhaling, hands come down to either side of the foot, back foot comes up to the front, meet me in forward fold. Hands to shins, rise up halfway, exhaling, come down and pressing the feet down as the arms rise, meet me in mountain. Palms together, hands to heart. Find your mountain pose and check in again, finding breath. Taking a deep breath in, arms rise, exhaling, forward fold. Hands to shins, rise up halfway. Come on down to the mat, final forward fold. Let's go ahead and just move that upper body again from one heel up and over to the other as the hands follow along the mat. And settling at center, just kind of notice how this forward fold might be a little different than the first one you started with today. Hands to shins, rise up halfway and exhale down to the mat, meeting me in plank. Anchor into plank. Be intentional and controlled as you come down to the mat and choose your back bend. And meet me in downward facing dog. So we're going to move into pigeon pose. So maybe that means that you use blocks. Maybe you have a pillow or a blanket nearby. Maybe you don't need that. Just offering some options here. On that next inhale, raise that right leg up to the sky. Drawing the gaze forward, knee to nose, again, anchoring in. Inhale, leg rises. This time, bring the knee to the outside of the same arm and come up. Last time, knee comes to center, and then bring it across and rise. So now bring that leg to center, kickstand the leg out, and come down to that front leg. Keep the weight in the hands till that back leg comes down to the mat. As you begin to walk the back leg down, decide, if your hip is really elevated, maybe it helps to have a blanket underneath it. Maybe the shin is parallel to the front of the mat. If that's your body, maybe the heel is all the way into the groin. Each of us is different. What you're looking for is a stretch across the outside of that hip. Find that length in the spine again. Find that reach as you hinge at the hips and come forward. And as you find your pigeon, support your head. So for some of us, that means a block. Remember that your block has all different levels. And for some of us, it means that our head is all the way down on the mat. In this pose of surrender, consider all the ways that God has faithfully resolved the problems of your past. Where have you been surprised by his solutions? I invite you to stay here for 3 more breaths. And the next inhale, press into your hands and rise up. Maybe lift the hips a little bit if you are using a prop of some kind. Come back to that right hip, bring that left leg, that back leg, all the way around to the front. Find your twist. From your twist, I invite you to take your left hand, so same as that top leg. Go ahead and bring the hip down towards the mat. And then find whatever twist is right for you. So maybe this, my right and mixed, all left up again, all mixed up. The right arm, maybe the right arm's underneath, maybe it's across. I lose my right and left with barometric pressure shifts. The brain is so fascinating. So we have a big shift going on right now today. It's taking a lot of concentration for me to do this. Gently come back to center. Meet me in table. If you think you might want a prop on the other side, go ahead and get that ready. Meet me in down dog. From downward facing dog, check in and just notice how it feels. On the next inhale, left leg rises high. So gaze forward, knee to nose. Inhale up. This time, bring the knee over to the inside of the opposite elbow. And up. Bring it to the outside of the same elbow. And up. Flying pigeon. This time, knee comes to nose center. You're going to kickstand that leg out, but now that back leg comes to the ground, then the front. Keeping the weight in the hands until you're solidly on that back leg as well. You want to protect this knee. And then just figure out where that shin belongs. Is it parallel to the mat? Is the heel in a little closer to the groin? Just working towards the stretch that's right for you. And noticing, right and left, do you need the same assistance or is the pose very different? So because I'm a little more flexible on this side today, which is actually unusual for me, I'm not going to use a prop. Hands come forward. Find your stretch. Find your support underneath the head. Find the stretch across that front hip. Can the body get heavy with each exhale? How is this stretch different than the stretch on the other side? One more breath here. Gently pressing into your hands, begin to raise the body up. You're going to bring this right leg around and across. Right thumb into hip crease. Begin to gently draw that hip towards the mat. Decide, what is that twist like for you on this side? Where is this left arm? Is it wrapped around? Is it across? Is it underneath? Can you lengthen the spine with the inhale? As you're ready, meet me back at center. Feet on the mat. Go ahead and come down onto your back, knees bent. For a moment, check in, noticing the way the back has settled onto the mat. Noticing any sensations in the legs and the hips. And then draw the knees in, give yourself a hug, and rock side to side. Coming to center, big toes together, begin to circle those knees out and around in opposite directions. And then switch directions, so a few circles this way. Knees together, gently draw the knees into the ribcage and away, beginning to restore a neutral position of the spine, finding those natural curves, reestablishing the arch of the lower back. As you're ready, the feet come to the mat and the legs extend long. Find Shavasana. Maybe adjusting the arms, bringing the arms up to the sky, reaching, letting the shoulder blades thump to the mat. One more time. The hands coming down to the side, palms up. Consider turning the head from the top of one ear up and over to the top of the other. And settle at center. In these final moments of your practice today, resting in the arms of Jesus, quieting the mind, letting go of the need to control and plan and rehearse. I invite you to stay here a little longer if you can. If you need to get on with your day, gently bring movement back, wiggling fingers and toes, rotating wrists and ankles. Maybe turning your head side to side. On that next breath in, bring arms up and overhead and stretch as long as you can, fingers to toes and toes to fingers. And bending knees, roll over onto your side. And find rest here for a few breaths. On the next inhale, press into your hands and rise up. Crossing legs comfortably in front of you. And as you find this sitting position, consider where you started today. You may no longer be up on a prop, so take that into consideration. How are those legs situated now? How do the hips feel? Notice body, mind, and soul. What has shifted since you came to the mat today? What has stayed the same? Accept it as it is. The next inhale, arms rise high, palms together, and exhaling, hands to heart, joining me in prayer. Holy God, you alone know the future. Help us to stay firmly in the present, unconcerned about what is to come, trusting in your faithfulness and your goodness, knowing that you will resolve the issues in front of us as we listen for your voice. We thank you, Lord, for your rest, for the peace that comes with trusting you. It is in the name of Jesus the Christ that we pray. Amen. Thank you for practicing with me today.